SEC coaches and administrators get together for their annual spring meeting down in Destin, Florida. We got Brent Beard on the line from First Coast News, College Sports Today, and you got to catch his new podcast, Second Helpings. Big caps on the S, the E, and the C. Second Helpings. Brent, how you doing today?
Mark, doing well. Great to be with you as always. And yes, we have maybe the most significant SEC meetings in Destin that we've had in quite a while. Meetings in Destin are usually the new coaches meeting each other and everybody getting a big check, hang around the pool for a while and enjoying themselves. But there will be some business done. And frankly, a lot of folks have wrote about this. I think some very serious business done during that time. I do want to mention that I did get this a few days ago, and I'm a connoisseur of the magazine, so they're starting to trickle in a little later than normal. And I don't know if any of the coaches there will be reading the magazine. I don't think they'll have time to do it, but always nice to plug that. But yes, Mark, it's going to be a very interesting 3 or 4 days in Destin, but probably unlike anything we've seen in the past.
Brent, I was able to scan about 4 weighty issues that really deal with the landscape of the SEC, and not just the SEC, all of college football, because, of course, if anything happens in the SEC, it's going to impact the greater landscape as well. But, you know, there's one that borders more on the theatrics, the hype of the last few weeks. So let's get that one out of the way. We've got Jimbo Fisher and we've got Nick Saban, and they're going to have to be in the same room. I don't know if they're going to have to communicate directly, but that should be quite the spectacle, first and foremost.
I think what you will have here is the commissioner will get them together, possibly in a private room, and sit down. Now they're not going to necessarily walk out holding hands, singing Kumbaya, but I think there will be something said to them, probably together with him, and probably also to the presidents. Mark, we've said this for years. There are 2 things the SEC protects and prizes above everything else. One is its money, and 2, it's its image. And if you want to, for our viewers, the NFL says you don't get dirt on the shield. Well, that's kind of what we're talking about here. Now, this was great fodder for talk show hosts and podcasts and things of that nature. And it went from the absurd to the sublime for a few days, because let's be honest, there's not enough going on in May to entertain people. So Fisher and Saban both, if they wanted to or not, provided a lot of entertainment for radio talk show hosts. But the presidents, we always have to put the presidents in here, because whether we like it or not, they still run things, don't they, Mark? Or they certainly sign off on things. We can never, ever forget that. But there will be something said with the coaches that we are not going to allow these dust-ups and dueling press conferences. So whatever we need to deal with, we will deal with behind closed doors, and then we will leave here with a united front. So, and Mark, not only did the commissioner take a dim view of that, as evidenced by he kept Lane Kiffin from going on the Dan Patrick show and talking about it because they don't want any dirty laundry mentioned about any schools with recruiting, and they just don't want open feuds going on because it hurts the image of the league, whether people think it's amusing or not. So that will be addressed behind closed doors. In the press conferences with the media, both coaches will say, we've moved on, and that will basically be about it. Now, there's still some serious issues with what they were dealing with a name, image, and likeness. And what do they do in that area to keep the runaway train slowed down until they can figure it out? So the media will make a big deal out of that, Mark, but don't expect any more fireworks in Destin.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin, for as great an offensive mind as he is, isn't the guy that you want representing the league and mediating, because for 10 or 15 minutes on the Dan Patrick Show, you just can't imagine that he would be able to hold back from some type of jab or one-liner at some point.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then when it comes to Saban and Fisher, just to let you know, and this is no surprise to you, Brent, we ran a poll here that got about 1,000 respondents on Twitter and here at YouTube, whether this was a positive for the league. The Saban-Fisher feud is a positive because it gains attention, or is it embarrassing and a negative? And it got overwhelmingly the votes that it's a positive because it brings attention. And I am completely in your camp that, yes, while we focus on the entertainment, the theatrics, and all of that, it is nothing but embarrassing when one coach in a league, possibly, depending on your interpretation, accuses the other one of cheating, and then you have the other one throwing out all sorts of terminology like godlike and czar-like at the other coach. That's I've never seen anything like it, and it is a black mark for the league for sure, and so that needs to stop right away. Brent, this SEC-only playoff that was discussed by Greg Sankey, and he was very open about it, about the various models that they're considering. How do you feel that that's just a lot of posturing against the rest of college football based on what happened with the rest of the leagues turning down the 12-team playoff proposal, or is this something that the SEC could possibly follow through on?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, frankly. I do think it's some posturing to get the other conferences' attention. And there's been a lot written about how upset Sankey is basically against this alliance, in that his committee did a lot of work, and that work basically, I won't say the work came to nothing. It still could, and I still think it will. But the important thing here is the SEC has the power now, and it can flex every now and then. And the 18 playoff of their own would give some flexing from the league. But I think, though, the SEC is serious in that there are some things on its agenda that it wants to see done. And the playoff going to 12 would be one of those. Mark, listen, it's absolutely asinine to me why you've got the Pac-12 and the ACC, particularly, that don't want an expanded playoff. Look, let's be honest. That's the only way they're going to get the playoff. Frankly, I mean, I know Washington's appeared, Clemson has, but look, we saw this in the ACC. When Clemson doesn't play well, the ACC basically struggles to get someone in the playoff, and we know the Pac-12 is going to be doing the same thing at this point. Oklahoma will get in for the Big 12. We know the Big 10 is never going to have an issue with that, but see, the good thing when this comes up again is it will not be unanimous in the vote. It will only be by majority. And see, the last vote was like 8-3, and it should have passed at that point and just went on. Instead, they wanted it unanimous. That's just not going to happen anymore. But Sankey, particularly with Jim Delaney's retirement, John Swofford being gone, you've got new commissioners, and that's good and that's bad. These commissioners don't have a lot of experience, frankly, in running the conference and working with others the way that Delaney and Swofford did. So I think this is something that probably goes just beyond. I won't call it a threat. I would say that this is the SEC making a viable plan that if the playoffs don't expand, that they could go and do their own thing. And that is something when you know, he who has the gold makes the rules. And I won't go that far with it, but that connotation, I think, has some validity here in that it will be something that's seriously discussed during these meetings.
On the field, it's the SEC, and there's no question as the best. The Big Ten's been able to keep up in regards to TV ratings and money, but now with Oklahoma and Texas, yes, the SEC is breaking free as the most dominant league. I would hate to see it come to a situation where there's a standoff, because I don't think it's good for college football. I certainly believe that the SEC could pull it off, that they could hold a 16-team a playoff within their 16-team structure, or maybe if they gain a few other members from some other leagues, if it's a 24-team or a 32-team league 10 years from now with its only playoff, they could certainly pull it off. There are things such as regional businesses that thrive, but we don't want a regional business in college football. I think we want everyone included to be a participant here. So, folks, it's Second Helpings, capital letters, SEC, Second Helpings. Check it out, your favorite audio platform with Brent. And I need Brent and his crew to name some of my podcasts, because they would do much better in regards to the creativity of the naming. So I like that. Oklahoma and Texas, Brent, are scheduled to join the SEC in 2025. I find it odd that they've already played one lame duck season in the Big 12, and we're looking at 3 more.
Yeah, look, I can't imagine that either. I mean, it was not well received, shall we say, to put it mildly, among the rest of the conference and their fans that OU and Texas continued to be in there. I really do wonder that, and well, Mark, you know good and well behind the scenes, and boy, how would you like to have this job as the SEC schedule maker over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, and trying to have all this stuff fit together. But I'm with you. It really makes you wonder that maybe by 23, sure not going to happen this year, obviously, 23, 24. I mean, I think it would be in everybody's best interest to go ahead and get them in early, to have them leave, and to kind of go from there. Now, listen, one thing you said a minute ago deserves a tad more emphasis, and that's expansion. Now, I really believe, and have said, used this term for years, expansion is not dead. Expansion is only dormant. And look, I'm not reporting this as happening. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I've seen 2 or 3 reports that have really got me thinking about this, that Mark, the SEC may not be done. Frankly, I mean, there's some thought about you add OU and Texas. Well, what's going to keep them from going to 18 or 20 or something of that matter at some point? And I don't think that's something they want to jump in immediately with. But when you've got the power that the SEC does, and people would say, well, what would it take from a geographical perspective? Expansion no longer has anything to do with geography. We've seen that with the Big 12. We've seen that with other conferences. Now, again, what the SEC would tell you is it would have to be value. That they're not going to just have a couple teams join, just to have a couple teams join. I mean, it would be, let's be honest, Mark, a big name brand in order for that to happen. So, and again, it may not be anytime soon, but you never say that expansion is over. Now they've got to get OU and Texas in and get used to that situation. And with that going on, you've got other things to keep in mind. And this is a part of what's going on here too, Mark, is what do they do with divisions, or do they go to these pods? How do they really divide this up with any kind of equality, and who wants to keep what rivalry intact? These are just, again, some of the deluge of questions that the SEC is going to have to deal with or certainly begin to deal with during these next few days. Mark, I think another issue that the league is going to be looking at too is going to be, and I know television wants this very badly, would be the aspect of what do they do with getting some of the upper echelon and more high-profile teams in the league to play each other more often. Case in point is I had a chance to go to the Alabama-Florida game since we live close to Gainesville here in the Jacksonville, Florida area last year, and that's the first time that Alabama had come to Gainesville in about a decade. Well, the television brethren would certainly like to see games like that played on a more regular basis. So because of that, what they would prefer would be to come up with a structure in the scheduling in order for that to happen. Now, there'll be a lot said about do they go to a 9-game conference schedule or stay with the 8-game conference schedule. But I think another example of having the more high-profile teams play each other would be, see, Texas A&M is playing Georgia next year, and that would be the first time Georgia's going to A&M since A&M's entered the conference. Now, I believe Florida's played A&M before the end of this year, probably 4 times. So that you just got some real inequality going on in the schedule. And Mark, my question is, surely the powers to be in the SEC do not want a situation here to where your more higher profile teams just don't get together very often. And again, as we mentioned, TV wants that very badly to get that going again. But I think that's something else that's going to be discussed because they want players. The ideal situation is if you play 4 years at my school, we, in theory, want you to play everyone in the conference at least once before your eligibility runs out.
And Brent, of course, we also have a situation where the Pac-12 has actually taken some leadership. I credit them for the first time in forever taking some leadership. Of course, they have a new commissioner who seems to be very proactive in abolishing the divisions, going with a 1 versus 2 seeding format. And they're going to start this right away in 2022. The other conferences are considering it. I've run the numbers on the SEC throughout its history. It would have changed the matchup roughly half the time. So that's intriguing as well. Brent, we know you need to run, and we want everyone to check out Second Helpings, SEC Second Helpings with Brent and your co-host as well.
Yeah, Travis Ryer. And we worked together in radio 4 years, and we certainly appreciate that very much. It's been a lot of fun. Mark, always a lot of fun being on with you, but I don't want to be dramatic about this, but I think this is one real meeting in Destin, Mark, where we're going to have some things that will begin. There's only so much you can do basically in a week, but that will begin to really shape college football over the next few months. So I certainly encourage people to tune in. I know we'll be talking about it down here. I know you will be too, as much as you possibly can overall with individual team sites in the SEC. So it should be a very interesting week, Mark, to say the least.